Well, hi there. Warm welcome. You're watching Times Now, and I'm Meghna Deka. Well, today we are going to be diving deep into a storm that has rattled the world of academia. President Trump, this time around, has fired a direct shot at the elite institution, specifically Harvard again. In fact, accusing them of promoting campus wokeness and threatening national values. The fallout? Well, a sweeping crackdown that could possibly ban foreign students, leaving 788 Indian scholars stranded in uncertainties. That's right, 788 Indian students are currently studying in Harvard, and their fate too now hangs in balance. With a 42-hour ultimatum which was given and 6 non-negotiable demands, the White House is not just rewriting the visa norms, it is also reshaping the future of global education in America. In fact, the Trump administration has barred the Ivy League college from enrolling any foreign students, leaving the future of both the university as well as the international students in a bit of a limbo. Now, Harvard's student exchange and visitor program status has been revoked on the charges that they promote violence and anti-Semitism. This is what President Trump has accused. Now, in a sharp rebuttal to the Trump administration, the Harvard University has already fired back against the new law. In fact, the directives that have targeted visas for international students, the university has called the move a retaliatory action, warning that it could cause serious and lasting harm to both the institution and the global academic community. Harvard, which hosts students from over 140 countries, has said that the government's order threatening visa status for international students if courses go fully online is not only unlawful but also an assault on educational freedom and global engagement. In fact, let's also give you a bit of a sense of what is the larger context. Remember, Donald Trump has been on a warpath against Harvard ever since his second term had begun. In fact, he had been very critical of the university for allowing anti-Israeli, pro-Palestinian protests inside the campus at the peak of the war between the two countries. So let's take you through the charges that have been leveled by the Trump administration against the Ivy League school. Well, there you have it. The first one is to perpetuate unsafe environment for education. The second charge against it is that the campus is hostile to Jewish students. This is part of the anti-Semitic narrative which is being built. Also, it promotes pro-Hamas sympathizers inside the campus. The fourth charge that it faces is that it employs racist diversity, equity policies. Also, that it allegedly refuses to provide records of foreigners, which has been one of the biggest sticking points when it comes to the Trump administration. Ties with Chinese Communist Party is also something which is being cited. Now, interestingly, after these charges have been leveled, now you have the Trump administration, as I was telling you earlier, it's given a 72-hour deadline to Harvard, threatening permanent action if they don't fulfill the 6 demands. Now, what are these 6 demands which are being made by the US administration? The first demand there on your screens. The first demand is that records of all the illegal activity, quote-unquote illegal activity by non-immigrants must be submitted. That records of dangerous activity by non-immigrants also must be submitted to the government. The documentation of any threats by any non-immigrants must also be given to the government. Also, it has sought the records of deprivation of the rights which involve non-immigrants and disciplinary records of any of the non-immigrants. Evidence of protests involving non-immigrants, and a lot of these are in the last 5 years or at a time when this is outside the campus as well. These are the records which are being sought. But it is the Indian students who are going to be suffering the most in this entire tussle between Trump and Harvard. Presently, remember, the university houses about 7,000 foreign national students, out of which 788 of them are Indians. In fact, that is about a quarter of them are Indians. Well, they have just only one option, which is now left for them. Find a place in some other university, or else they'll be forced to leave US completely. In fact, take a look at the way that Indian students have been increasing over the years when it comes to Harvard? Well, it had started in 2018, about 624, then it went all the way up to 659, a slight dip there during the COVID years to 515, went up again to 613, and then it has been going up. As you can see, around 2022, it was around 816, and then 824, and finally, this is where it stands right now, 788, a slight dip in this academic year. Now, interestingly, the Harvard University isn't just an Ivy League giant, as all of us know. It's also the launchpad for global change makers, and India's imprint on its legacy, of course, has always run very deep. Over the decades, some of the country's brightest minds of India have walked its hallowed halls, shaping industries, influencing policies, and leading institutions back home as well. Who are India's Harvard alumni? Well, there you have it. The people that we have in India. For example, you have Ratan Tata, Anand Mahindra, you have Rahul Bajaj, of course, the who's who when it comes to the industrialists, but also philanthropists. Then you also have Ashish Nanda, who's the former director of IIMA. You have Kapil Sibal, senior advocate of the Supreme Court, also leader with the Congress Party, Subramaniam Swamy, a former union minister, as well as a lawyer, and the likes of P. Chidambaram. You have Jayant Sinha as well. So several of these alumni have been very critical in shaping India's policy, India's ink as well. Meanwhile, and here's an interesting part, is it going to be America's loss and China's gain? Because suddenly you have the dragon swooping in. You have China, which has officially voiced its disapproval, calling the move to restrict international student visas as politicization of education. Beijing's foreign ministry has stated that it consistently opposes the politicization of the academic exchange, warning that such actions will not only harm individual students, it will also damage the international image and standing of the United States itself. In fact, in a very sharp critique, the Chinese officials have also said that they are going to take necessary steps to ensure that they protect the rights and interests of overseas Chinese students, many of whom are directly being affected by US administration's recent directives. So what does the Trump administration's order really mean for these foreign students who are presently enrolled but not yet graduated from Harvard? Well, let's explain the questions that you may have on your mind. Well, there you have it on your screen. What next for the foreign students? You can get a transfer or you can lose your legal status. The second big question, can present foreign students graduate? Big question there. Yes, for those who have already completed the degree, yes, they can graduate. Can new foreign students enroll? No, not unless the government changes its decision. Things are, of course, presently in a limbo. Also, can the government ban enrollment of foreign students? Yes, the government oversees exchange and visitor program, something that the government has in its hand. Meanwhile, let's get you some big breaking news. The latest which is coming in from America right now is that Harvard takes the fight to Trump, and it's going to be a long legal fight, it appears. Harvard has moved the court against their order by the Trump administration, saying we condemn this unwarranted action. Also, Harvard has reassured the international students that we will support all the students and scholars. Let me go across to our guests. Joining us today on the show, we have David Sofair. He's a Republican strategist. Also joining us, Gaurava Yadav, who is the founder of Indian Principles Network, which functions and works with educationists all across the world. David Sofair, I'm going to come to you because the latest that we have is coming in from Harvard right now. They've taken the war to Trump, it appears. Of course, it has been building up. Pressure points have been made. But who's going to back down? Because we do know that a Californian court has already stepped in, at least in some of the cases. And you have Judge White there, if I'm not mistaken. He has said that the U.S. administration has wreaked havoc in the lives of the plaintiffs and international students. This is what one of your judges has to say. What next, David Sofair? Will the Trump administration blink?
Well, at the end of the day, the ball is in Harvard's court, okay? Harvard has not complied with several very fair demands from the current administration that has to do with safety and security. So they decided not to comply, and in typical Trump fashion, they are now met with sanctions and consequences. The idea that we are not going to follow the law here in the United States and then just get away with it is unbelievable. What's happening in Harvard is you have, it's run by people on the very, very far left, and the whole administration there are never Trumpers. Now, what they have done is made it a very unsafe environment for certain students. They have openly have racism and discrimination there through DEI, anti-Semitism, violent protest, which is against the law in every country, not just in the United States. And
Absolutely.
they have people in there who have come up on the red flags of the American immigration system. So it is Harvard's responsibility and due care to comply with the United States to get the information on these students who could be part of the Chinese Communist Party. They could be terrorists. Look, at the end of the day, remember 9/11? Those were students as well who were on those planes. So we take this
But David Sofair, sorry to interrupt you, and you brought in the Communist Party. It's very interesting. Today you have China, which is preaching to America about freedom and liberties. Do you have China, which is sensing in an opportunity and saying, come, study in China, perhaps. They are hoping that they can capitalize. In fact, China is now coming out preaching to the United States about saving their liberties, their democracies. And in the latest statement, which is coming out from China's foreign ministry, they are saying that, don't worry, we will protect the rights of our students when it comes to United States, that United States is destroying its own core strengths. David,
at the end of the day, this is a negotiation tactic. As far as Chinese comments go, I would not take them seriously. China actually has a lot of influence at Harvard, as they are big benefactors to the university and several other elite American Ivy League institutions. So again, this boils down to students being unsafe and the body there who, let's keep in mind, they do get federal funding from the United States government. They are not compliant. So this is the retaliation. So there's a retaliation, and ultimately it's a good thing. Let's make college campuses safe. Let's make it fair. And remember, for foreign students and all that stuff, it's a privilege and not a right. So it's time for these universities to take some accountability and stop all this nonsense on American college campuses, preaching hate, preaching anti-Semitic values, preaching racism through DEI and diversity and violence.
But I find that very interesting that you say that, because many have said that Harvard has been the crown of America all these decades. Have American colleges so far been unsafe? Is the question. But I'll just come back to you, David Sofair. Let me go across to Gaurava as well. Gaurava, it's very important for us to understand what next, because there are close to 700 Indian students who are sitting there wondering what will happen next. Yes, there are courts which have stepped in. Harvard has actually taken the fight, even sued the government. But there is a lot of uncertainty. What happens for the Indian students who are still studying? Because most of them, I believe, are graduate students. They are still in between their courses. Gaurava, can you please unmute yourself?
Yeah, my apologies. Firstly, even to the standards of Honorable President, this is firstly a very excessive step, number one. Not just the Indian student, I think you pointed out the number example. I think the exact number stands at 6,793 students are international students, which are in the current academic year on campus at Harvard, which is almost 30% of the entire population there. So I personally feel, and what little I have heard from fellow friends or students who are there or who are planning to be there for that matter, they are very, very uncertain as to how things will unfold going forward, number one. But at the same time, I believe that the entire matter could have been handled a little more deftly, I would say, considering these are students who have gone for a very specific purpose. And just because of few of them, maybe, and I'm not questioning everyone here, but I'm certainly putting questions to certain students, which I believe the Trump administrations find them to be the fall line. Not everyone should be given a blanket treatment the way it's being given right now. And I think that's a little excessive, and which is why I personally would see that if this can be handled a little more deftly for all the international students, not just Indian.
I agree with you, but Gaurava, as David Sofair was saying, it doesn't mean he's about to do it. He, in fact, very interesting words David had used. He said, this is a negotiation. We've seen these negotiations of President Trump when it comes to, for example, Zelensky. For example, you have the South African President, Cyril, as well. So these are negotiation tactics. He is, after all, a businessman at heart. Would you call this a negotiation with students? Gaurava.
That's what I said, that even to his standards, this is excessive.
Okay.
Considering he holds very high standards when he take up things or matters in his hand, for that matter. And I think this should not be made an issue beyond the academia or should be politicized the way I think the Chinese thing is boiling up there. I think this should be handled by, I'm sure there are a lot of academicians in his administration who can really take this up with the Harvard. Obviously, this is not just happening with Harvard, by the way. I was reading.
Absolutely.
There are another 10 Ivy colleges, Columbia University being one of them. They obviously succumbed to the pressure they were put on. So I
even
think
Brown and so on and so forth.
Yeah,
most of them have
absolutely.
succumbed to these strong arm tactics, but when it comes to
Precisely.
Harvard, they have said all along, and they've said no all along, and today too, they have said Harvard is not going to be Harvard. But here's
If
the
you
problem,
go to the
David Sofair. I'm so
timeline,
sorry, I'm running out of time. David Sofair, one quick last question. I can't let you go without asking you that. Do you think Harvard will be Harvard without the international students? Will America be America without international students?
How about this? America will not be America with violence and crime and civil discourse and muzzling and suppression of freedom of speech. And that should be the narrative on this program. And it's really a shame what's happening in the Ivy League. We're actively cleaning up the whole thing. And it's a good thing. What Trump is doing will ultimately be a very, very good thing. And it will make the experience for foreign students a lot better than it is now. Because what's happening there is unacceptable, it's dangerous, and it's not fair. So this should have been this is a long time coming, and it should not be tolerated on any American college campus.
Well, violence as well as lawlessness, there's never any place for it. In campus, outside campus. That is why we have authorities, that is why we have governments. But when it comes to academia, are we painting all the students with the same brush? Is that fair? And more importantly, will Harvard be Harvard without the contribution of international students? Of course, as we are just telling you, Harvard has sued the administration. We'll have to wait and see what's going to be the next move. But David Sofair says that the ball is in Harvard's court. Thank you so much, Gaurava, as well as David, for joining us here on the show. Without a short break, don't go anywhere.